Football's been called the immortal sport, but it doesn't mean the players are immortal as well. The superstar lifestyle is one thing, but football players are just as human as anyone else. These are 10 times players almost died. Number 1. Imagine the entire world watching in stunned silence as a young, seemingly fit athlete falls to the ground, motionless. That's exactly what happened during Euro 2020 when Danish midfielder Christian Eriksen collapsed on the pitch in the middle of the game. Medical personnel rushed to his aid, and the agonizing wait began. If you were watching the footage, you probably didn't see it, but as his teammates shielded him from view, he was being given CPR. That day, Eriksen's heart stopped. He was gone, and he was brought back right there on the pitch. This wasn't just about a player getting injured, it was a stark reminder of the fragility of life, even for the fittest competitors. But that's not as crazy as what happened to Fabrice Muamba. While Eriksen thankfully recovered, Muamba's story is one of true survival against all odds. Number 2. Football can turn terrifying in an instant. In 2012, midfielder Fabrice Muamba suffered a cardiac arrest during a match. The game was stopped, and while the camera looked elsewhere, the fans in attendance saw it all live. The crucial minutes that followed were a desperate fight for his life. Thankfully, medical personnel acted swiftly, and a defibrillator brought him back. Muamba miraculously survived, but this ordeal forced him to retire from the sport he loved. But he's probably just happy he's still able to spend time with his family and friends. Number 3. While Muamba defied the odds, another legend faced a heart scare of his own. Iker Casillas was more than just a goalkeeper. Even the higher-ups at Real Madrid didn't get along with him. They had to keep him at the club because he was just that good. And more importantly, he was loved by every single football fan in the world. So, in 2019, when goalkeeper Iker Casillas suffered a heart attack during training, the news sent shockwaves through the football world. It happened during training, so no one saw it live, but when people found out, Iker's DMs were full of support. Thankfully, Casillas fought through it and got to retire like he deserved. And he isn't the only keeper to have faced off against death. Number 4. Not all near-death experiences involve the heart. Did you ever wonder why Petr Cech always had that weird-looking helmet? Well, in 2006, Petr Cech collided with another player during a match, suffering a horrific fractured skull. The injury was so severe, it required extensive surgery and a metal plate to be inserted in his head. Despite the gruesome nature of the incident, Cech made a remarkable recovery. He returned to the field, but with one key difference, a protective helmet that became his trademark. And that wasn't the only time Cech came close to his demise. The true test came after the collision during the game. There was a chance we would have lost him then and there on the pitch, but it wasn't the biggest test he faced. The extensive surgery I mentioned wasn't quite as straightforward as you'd expect. They didn't know if the surgery would even work. Things were a bit too close for comfort, but everything worked out fine and Cech continued to play at the top for years to come. But hey, wouldn't you wear the helmet too if you went through all this? Number 5. Speaking about going through a traumatic experience, this next incident will really send chills down your spine. Even the most secure places can feel unsafe. In 2023, PSG goalkeeper Gianluigi Donnarumma's world was rocked when his Parisian home was invaded by robbers. Reports detail a terrifying ordeal where Donnarumma and his partner were tied up and forced to witness the theft of hundreds of thousands of euros worth of valuables. Imagine what would have been going through Donnarumma's head seeing his partner tied up next to him. The robbers only wanted valuables though, and left them unharmed. Thankfully, they managed to escape and alert the authorities. You'd think football players would be untouchable, but no. They're actually a bit of a target because it's pretty easy to know where they're going to be at a certain time and easy to know where they live. It's fair to say Donnarumma will always have security from now on. Number 6. But hey, at least Donnarumma didn't get harmed, because Miguel Garcia didn't even know where he was when things took a turn for the worst. In 2010, during a Spanish second division match, midfielder Miguel Garcia suffered a heart attack on the field. He just collapsed out of nowhere, and frankly, that's the worst thing to watch as a viewer. If a player went down due to a tackle, you know it's only an injury. But seeing a player collapse unconscious, you just know something bad's about to happen. Thankfully, medical personnel reacted swiftly, giving him life-saving medical attention. Just look at how his teammates reacted. They instantly knew something was wrong. Imagine how helpless they would have felt. They could do nothing but watch as their friend's life hung in the balance. But it wasn't as weird as this next one, because even Araujo didn't see this one coming. Number 7. Head injuries are a serious concern in football. In 2022, Barcelona defender Ronald Araujo collided with his teammate during a match, collapsing unconscious. But it didn't happen as you'd expect. There was a collision of heads, but Araujo didn't go down instantly. He ran back to position looking like nothing had happened, and then went down unconscious. The incident sent shivers down everyone's spine. Medical personnel rushed to the field, treating Araujo for nearly 8 minutes before taking him to the hospital by ambulance. Thankfully, Araujo regained consciousness and was later diagnosed with a concussion. A concussion isn't the same as a heartbreak, but it can be pretty dangerous depending on the circumstances. Number 8. Especially in football, when pulses and adrenaline are high, you really don't want to be on the ground unconscious. Just ask Didier Drogba. Even the most fearsome strikers can find themselves vulnerable. In 2006, Chelsea legend Didier Drogba collided with goalkeeper Tomás Nkono during a friendly match. Friendly matches are meant to be less aggressive, but who could predict when things like this would happen? Drogba challenged for a cross and the keeper came to punch the ball away. Everyone held their breath when Nkono inexplicably punched Drogba in the head. The force of the blow knocked Drogba unconscious, sparking outrage and confusion on the field. But Drogba recovered quickly, and luckily for the keeper, his mistake didn't prove to be too costly. Come to think of it, we were that close to losing one of the greatest strikers in the world. That's a pretty terrible thing to even think about. But not as terrible as knowing your family's being held hostage in your house. Number 9. The line between work and home can blur for footballers, and sometimes the danger follows them off the field. In 2021, while Angel Di Maria was playing a match for PSG, his Parisian home was targeted by robbers. This is a problem with being a famous football player. It's easy for people to know when you're going to be away from your home. Everyone knew Di Maria would be playing in this game, and some robbers planned to hit his house when they knew for a fact that Di Maria wouldn't be home. When the news reached the stadium, Di Maria was substituted, and when he got to know what had happened, he couldn't believe it. His wife and 2 daughters were being held captive, and all he could do was sit and wait. Knowing your family needs you and not being able to do something is probably the worst feeling out there. Thankfully, it all ended up being fine, and his family was okay. Di Maria wasn't even in his house, but imagine if he was and he tried to fight back. His life would have been in grave danger. Number 10. But not as much danger as Messi's life was during this El Clasico. Even the most graceful players can experience moments of terrifying vulnerability. In 2017, during a Barcelona match, Lionel Messi collided with a Juventus player, landing awkwardly on his neck. He stayed down for a bit but then continued playing. He didn't get too much attention instantly, but later, doctors revealed that if Messi had landed very slightly differently, his life would have been at risk. Thankfully, replay showed Messi had narrowly avoided a more serious injury, escaping with just whiplash. Jeez, imagine a world without the greatest player to ever live. All because of one aerial challenge during that Champions League quarter-final. Even if you hate Barca, you know that would have been the worst feeling ever. Not as bad as I feel though, because so many of you watch my videos without being subscribed. Make sure you're subscribed and go on to this next video because this one's even more dramatic.